Good afternoon from a beautifully sunny Wakefield. Last time I was stood outside West Yorkshire Police's headquarters here was with Charlotte Hales, a former Chief Inspector, during Storm Eunice. But Alison Lowe OBE, you very kindly lined up some fantastic weather this time for me, so thank you so much for that.
Very welcome.
Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime here in West Yorkshire, and a number of relevant Association of Police Commissioners responsibilities. We're going to talk about both West Yorkshire and some of those national responsibilities as well. So let's have a walk round Wakefield and have a chat at the same time. Now, firstly, to cross this road, I do not want to be responsible for any harm to befall you. So actually, a colleague, Andy, is kindly shepherding us at various points. So, Alison, let's start with West York. Let's start with a little bit of your background, actually, because you were, from 1990 to 2019, a Leeds City councillor, and you were the first black woman on Leeds City Council. How did that feel at the time?
Well, actually it felt really scary, because obviously as the only black face you wonder what reception you're going to get. Actually, being black wasn't really an issue. Being young was a massive issue. So I was 25, I was the youngest councillor on the authority. I wasn't really taken seriously. There was a bit of patronising, but I also made lots of mistakes, you know, and
doesn't everybody?
Absolutely, and you know, fools rush in and all that sort of stuff. And I think what happened is I learned to realise that my strengths was something that I could capitalise on if I learned how to do the business in a diplomatic way and maybe calm it down a bit, but also when something was really important to me, that passion was really an asset, an important asset to use. So it was a great introduction to politics, but it was also a great introduction to being an influencer and a negotiator and being with people, really.
So lots learnt there, and I suspect lots also learnt prior to your becoming a city councillor. I'm thinking there of, you know, your youth, your upbringing, the challenges that there would have been in your youth, some of the attitudes that there would have been to not just a young black female councillor, but prior to that, as a young black female growing up. Not just in this part of the country, but anywhere in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was brought up in East Leeds, a place called Seacroft. We were one of 3 black families on a 4,000 council house estate. Racism was an everyday reality, but also so was violence. You know, there was lots of violence in my childhood, not from my family, but from neighbours. I talk openly about the fact that I was sexually abused as a child, and I also experienced domestic abuse for 10 years. And so, yeah, violence, living in poverty, living in you know, working class estate, they were all part and parcel of what's really made me who I am. And by the time I got to the council, you know, I was still living in a domestic abuse situation when I was elected onto the council. So they were all part of who I was, my lived experience, and also I brought that to bear in you know, my conversations and some of the influence I was able to bring as a result of that lived experience. So I cherish it all, you know. I wish some of that stuff hadn't happened, but it did happen, and I've used it to my advantage and hopefully to the advantage of other women.
Well, now Andy's setting a ferocious pace here, so let's slow down just a little bit. It is quite warm today, isn't it?
Yeah, gloriously so.
We'll just glide along more
Wonderful
gently than we are at the moment. So one of the things that I know that I personally more often than not find challenging is some of the terminology that's used in this area. Now, My understanding is that your mother was from Ireland, your father was from, was it St Kitts?
Yes, St Kitts and Nevis, the
St
Caribbean.
Kitts and St Nevis. And so, what constitutes black, and what constitutes mixed race? Is it something for the individual, or is it so help me with some of the terminology here, because you know, as an increasingly grey-haired aged white male, sometimes I struggle a little with elements of this, and I suspect that others do too.
Well, I would personally say it doesn't really matter. What matters is how a person self-identifies, and I would always embrace somebody's personal identification of their race, their ethnicity, their religion, their gender identity, etc, etc. I personally describe myself as mixed, so I'm both black British, but so I'm black British, that's how I identify, but I'm also white. My mum's a white woman, she was a white woman, Irish heritage, and I celebrate that part of me just as I celebrate the black Caribbean part of me. But unfortunately, when I turned up at the school gates to pick my children up, you know, people saw a black woman, and then my kids got the racism. So I can't pretend to be white when I look like I look. So I have to make my mind up to be, you know, the person that not only do I feel, but I'm perceived by others. So I am a black woman, I've experienced racism, I'm black British, I feel like I'm British, I feel very close to my community, not just my black community, but all the communities of West Yorkshire, and I feel okay with that. Other people will feel differently, and that's okay too.
These matters are quite important when we come on in a moment or two to the race action plan, the terminology that's used. I'm just going to pause there, almost literally pause for breath, because we're now at Wakefield Cathedral. So again, on the earlier walk with Charlotte, we came to Wakefield Cathedral, and it is the most glorious structure and quite the landmark in Wakefield. My personal favourite actually is an ice cream shop down by the station, but we'll not dwell on that too much, at least at the moment. West Yorkshire. So you're now the Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime in West Yorkshire.
Yes.
Let's talk a little about West Yorkshire, and we'll carry on down here again now, I think. Police morale, say the West Yorkshire Federation and indeed the National Federation, is at pretty much the lowest level that it's been for many a year. In part, they say, the Federation, because police pay is 20% down on where it really ought to be. With pay rises over the last few years, partly justified through austerity, pay rises have not been what they might have been. Now, we'll just perhaps contemplate that whilst we delicately make our way down the stairs. Rather, we don't want a tumble from either of us here. But so, a significant challenge for you. And for the Chief Constable of West Yorkshire.
Absolutely.
How do you deal with that challenge and the morale, and indeed the stories, the accounts that there are of police officers needing to go to food banks?
So I think it's, you know, outrageous that police officers need to go to food banks, and I think it was a mistake of the Home Secretary to deny police officers a pay rise last year and in previous years. The police are a key public service, and it was great that we were clapping the NHS, as I was during COVID, but the police were actually there on the front line, you know, making sure that people were safe, our communities were safe, and we rewarded them. We didn't even give them a clap, and we definitely didn't give them a pay rise, and it's shocking. And I think that the way that the government has such negative views, clearly they have negative views of policing, otherwise they would recognise the contribution that they're making to our communities and pay them accordingly. Also, for new recruits, the pay is too low, and it means that we can't get more experienced life people coming to work for us. The new PEQF that's being rolled out.
Degree gate, if you like.
Exactly. It means that we're getting very young people, which is absolutely fantastic. They're great, they're full of energy, they're full of talent, but we want a mix. We want, to encourage people with some experience in life to come into policing, as well as those new talented young people. But the salaries are so low that that's not going to happen. And similarly, we've got police staff whose terms and conditions are absolutely terrible, and starting pay less than £20,000, and we wonder why we're struggling to recruit police staff. So I think that our police officers, they put their lives at risk every day. Through COVID, the amount of attacks on police officers went up exponentially. Really, they need danger money, and I think that should be reflected in their pay. So I call out the Home Secretary and her decision not to fund
So what,
officers.
if anything, can you do, and can the Mayor, Tracy Brabin, do that helps to ameliorate, helps even at the margin to improve the situation of police officers here in West Yorkshire?
So we meet the unions and the Police Federation on a regular basis. I met the Police Fed a couple of weeks ago, and they asked me to raise with West Yorkshire Police the issue of pay, which I did, to understand if there was anything we could do differently. The Chief Constable clearly understands the difficult situation that policing is in, and he's keeping a really close eye on issues like access to food banks and trying to bring in a range of support mechanisms, which we obviously support. Fundamentally though, next year we're going to have a £11 million budget deficit, and the year after we're facing a £10 million budget deficit. We've also got the uplift target that we have to achieve.
So this is it's related to the government's target of an additional 20,000 police officers, yes, of which West Yorkshire will be expected to play its part.
Yeah, I think we get about 832 over the 3 years, and we're on track. But unfortunately, the government does not fund them adequately, so we get about £23,000 per officer, but actually the full cost of a new officer is nearer to 26,500, because you've got the training, you've got your equipment, and obviously you've got the cost of living increase and NI increase. So we had to use monies that we got from the precept. This is what the Mayor did. The Mayor managed to get the maximum £10 precept to give to West Yorkshire Police to enhance their budget, and some of that offset the 341 or 2 police officers that we're getting additionally this year, but we did not get all the funding for that, as I've just said. So the other thing that we do is, by delivering the additional police officers and PCSO, so we're back up to 566, so we were nearly 100 down on that when the Mayor first took office. We're able to bring capacity to a very overstretched police force, so at least they've got the resources they need.
So resources are improving, albeit not what you would wish at the moment.
And the addition of the PCSOs, of course, is really integral to the discussion that we're having now, which is about police morale, because they're predominantly going to be neighbourhood policing resources, forging those relationships with the public, creating that trust and confidence with the public, and in doing so, hopefully the situation for policing will improve too.
Right, now I've now realised that actually it's not just Andy that's setting a furious pace, it's actually you as well. Because,
I'm fast walking.
Well, I suspect, very determined, precisely, that's exactly where I was going. So, the core, let's just move on a little from here. But
I'll slow down.
I'm not discouraging you in any way from voicing your thoughts and feelings in any aspect, but let's move on though to the race action plan. So this is a plan that's been published in draft very recently by the College of Policing and the National Police Chiefs Council, Andy Marsh and Dave Thompson. So Andy Marsh, the Chief Executive of the College of Policing, Dave Thompson, the lead in this particular area, currently the West Midlands Chief Constable. And it's a race action plan that focuses on broadly anti-racism and improving the lot. Do correct me if I paraphrase inappropriately or incorrectly, but improving the lot of black people here in the United Kingdom as regards the way in which they are policed and their involvement in policing. So first of all, your thoughts in outline on that. Do you think it's a good draft, or does it leave something to be desired?
So I absolutely welcome the plan that we've got. I was a part of the development of the plan more latterly since last December. So the bulk of it had already been developed at that point, and I was able to bring some of my views to the table, which have been taken on board. And actually we've now got ACC Tyrone Joyce, now DCC of course, Tyrone Joyce, who is a West Yorkshire Assistant Chief Constable, one of 2 black members of the command team here in West Yorkshire, who is now leading that piece of work on behalf of the NPCC and College of Policing, and he's brought even more rigour to the plan than was there previously. And I think that the plan, personally, I think it falls a bit short in that the reference to institutional racism doesn't quite get there. And I need to say that institutional racism does not mean that every police officer, or even a majority of police officers, are racist. It talks to the institutions, the policies, the structures, the systems that are not inclusive of the whole of the communities of England and Wales. And that is what we're talking about when we talk about institutional racism.
So just on that very point, it's not something that an individual police officer need necessarily get defensive about or concerned about. It's a reflection more of the systems, the procedures, the processes to challenge some of the marginal behaviours that there might be. So what might you...
But I have to say, it is something that should concern individual officers, because they have an individual role to play. They've got a responsibility to create an anti-racist force, but we're not saying that individual police officers are all racist and are all the problem. In fact, they're massively part of the solution.
So actually, isn't this another example of the terminology being something of a challenge? Because, you know, here we have a plan that, for reasons that are set out clearly in the draft document, we have a plan that is focused specifically on black people rather than those from other ethnic or country origins. It's focused, it talks about institutional racism. There's not as clear perhaps an understanding of that terminology as might be desired. So there's a lot of work to do in this, and that's borne out by the 4 broad work streams that the document. Let's just focus for a second on crossing the road safely again. Andy taking the lead, and we seem to have made fairly safe passage, but just about. Watch out, there's something coming. We're okay. Thank you so much, sir. So 4 broad work streams in the report. Broadly, this is looking to ensure that policing, when it comes to black people, that policing is the black people are not underprotected by the police, that they are not over policed, that they are involved in policing, and that they are represented in policing. Again, your thoughts on that? Is that a good structure on which to move forward?
Absolutely. I mean, it speaks to the Peelian principles, doesn't it? When, you know, Sir Robert Peel set up policing, it was in a world that didn't look like the world looks today. And this plan is seeking to build a bridge between the Peelian principles of the 19th century and the actual reality of life in the UK today. And it's recognising that for a lot of black people and therefore communities, policing has not felt fair. The evidence of things like disparities in stop and search, taser use or the use of force reinforces the feeling for black people in particular. I mean, this goes across all black minority ethnic communities, but particularly the feeling is that black communities feel this more than our Asian or other minority ethnic counterparts as a result of the fact that we've been here the longest and have been policed the longest.
And the statistics also indicate that black people are more likely to be stopped and searched. I think that they are more likely.
And we've got lower confidence in policing. Our trust and confidence in policing is about 20 points lower than our white counterparts. So the evidence is there that says we need to do something differently, because one of your Pelian principles, one of our Pelian principles, is the police should be the community and the community should be the police. If you want to get a more diverse police force, then the communities you serve need to feel safe applying to become a police officer.
And in some communities, as again the draft report sets out, their policing is not seen as an attractive profession in which to go, that there's pushback from potential recruits, friends, family, communities as to why you being a police officer, and so there's a lot of work that needs to go on behind the scenes in order to establish policing as something, as a profession that a potential recruit from a minority group, whether it be black or Asian or gypsy or other groups, feels confident in applying for and able to hold their head up when it comes to their friends and family. Exactly,
but also when they're in there, one of the aspirations of the plan is about internal culture and inclusion within that culture. You have to be safe. You know, you need to make sure that the structures that the police have developed keep you safe, and that there are processes and policies to ensure that you're not then victim from within, and so that's an important part too.
So Alison, we've almost come full circle. The police headquarters is just over that road. There's another police building just the other side of Laburnum Road where the police headquarters is based. I'd like to bring us back to West Yorkshire now, in that we talked about West Yorkshire at the start. One of the real challenges in policing over the past handful of years has been in austerity or budget cuts having a direct effect on community and neighbourhood policing. And certainly I would imagine that community policing, getting into the heart of those different communities, is key in establishing trust with the various communities that there are.
And I hinted at that in my answer about the PCSOs. Not only do they bring that capacity, they bring that reach into those communities. They enable communities to understand the role of policing, to feel part of the policing response, and it gives confidence to the community that the police are on their side and there to protect them. So I think that the loss of neighbourhood policing since 2010, when many forces lost many millions, we lost 140 million here in West Yorkshire and 500 police officers, the loss of that resource has had a massive impact on the police's ability to connect with the communities that it serves, and that is adding to the rationale for the race action plan. I believe that an investment in neighbourhood policing will lead to better relationships, connections, conversations with communities that we serve, a better understanding of the role of policing. But policing is here to serve, not to control, and I think that College of Policing, NPCC and also IOPC, that tripartite, together with Association of Police and Crime Commissioners, we all need to be working together to create this sense that the police is of the communities that they serve. They're not separate, they're not disparate, and they're definitely part of the solution.
Alison, thank you so much for taking me on a walk around Wakefield on a much more pleasant day than last time I was here. It's been a real pleasure meeting you and talking with you. So much more we could discuss, but I think for now at least, let's call it close there. Thank you once again.
Thank you.